Good evening, everyone, and good day. Welcome back to another live reality games podcast where we cover everything from Big Brother 23 that is happening right now. And here joining us is the pretty much two of the biggest people in the production for Survivor CNU. We cover everything from those reality games to live reality games here, especially College Survivor. We are here with Destiny. Destiny, how are you tonight?
Hi, I'm great. I'm excited to talk about it.
Destiny is pretty much our main podcaster here for CNU. Destiny, from this whole experience, like one of my favorite things, I just want to start out by saying, is having you on our team. I just want to say that.
Oh, thank you. That's so sweet.
You've been a joy to work with, and the energy you bring to this podcast and everything. Like, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Oh, you guys are so sweet because I was like, they're going to hate me when I first started. I was like, I'm so sorry you guys got stuck with me. I was the only one with a not busy schedule. That makes, like you're going to make me cry, and I'm not a crier. Thank you.
But besides that, we do have, as usual, Trevor here with us tonight. Trevor, how are you?
I'm doing great. Happy to talk about the finale. It's bittersweet, sad to see the season go, but you know, I'm happy to get to analyze what the hell happened with this final five moving forward to the final three.
As we kind of discussed last week on our podcast, to recap the last episode, Trevor, you're eventually going to graduate from college. You have a new host taking over. How was this season compared to like the ones that you've been a part of so far?
I think this season was one of them. Like everyone, there were a lot of players that were very strategic. I think more so than like any of those seasons that I ran. You know, from top to bottom. You know, like you had your Colin and Hannah's, but then you also had like John who went pre-merge and Pondo for about 30 hours, I'd say. Yeah, I'm sorry, Dustin, I can't say that name. But I think this season more than others, a lot of people came to play the strategy of it. A lot of, you know, some people it's like, oh, this is a college club, want to here to make friends. I would say probably 3/4 of this cast came to play a mental game, and some succeeded and some didn't. But I will say this is a very strategic season.
And the person behind most of the season that we see on the video on YouTube and everything is Colin. Colin, welcome back again.
Thank you. Like we said in the beginning, before this started, I did the first episode, then I did the merge, then I did the finale. So it's nice to really hit the trifecta on them all.
And for the folks that don't know at home, Colin is our main editor for the season, and of course, he will continue to contribute to some of the editing on the future seasons. We did get a little spoiler and a sneak peek for season 3, which we're super excited for. Trevor, while we have the audience here, season 3. When does it come out? When are you expecting it?
We're expecting season 3 to come out in the winter of 2022. The schedule for that is we're going to try to split it up where Colin will primarily work on season 3 and I will work on season 4. Try to get those seasons out pretty close together. You know, see between seasons 1 and 2 was about a year between there, and it was our first time editing anything. So we're both experienced. We both think we can do it on our own and try to get great content out as fast as possible.
Yeah, well, I like to see it as kind of like how Netflix always gives their new shows as to like what quarter of the year it's going to be. So first quarter 2022 should be the season 3 of Survivor CNU.
Nice, super excited about it. But we are super excited to talk about season 2 in deep water here. Destiny, like, where do we start? Like, we had a huge, almost 2-hour episode for the final few contestants here. We got tons of challenge, tons of gameplay, tons of voting, and of course, final tribal speeches. Destiny, where do we start in this?
I think we start at the beginning of it. I don't think we're going to need to go through all of it. The first part is pretty self-explanatory. They have this immunity challenge. You're seeing these alliances kind of form. There was another back stab or blind side kind of going into it. My favorite person ever went home with an idol in their pocket, and it's kind of this reveling, and you start this episode of Kristen being like, I'm next. I know I'm next. And from my perception of it, she doesn't really do anything.
We do see Kristen like play some kind of gameplay. Like she goes to the other people and she's like, "Hey, I really feel like this is the time to turn on the couple," which is a game move in itself. Like they've been kind of just floating along as this couple situation, but
yeah, and this was the first time anyone had kind of mentioned maybe we should get the couple out. And at the final five, that's just crazy. And I know Colin will get into it because he edited it, but I know Kristen went to both duos. Is that correct, Colin?
Yeah, pretty much right after the tribal council and the challenge, and right after the tribal council before the challenge, Kristen had gone to both Colin and Hannah to just basically say like, "Oh, it's okay. I know you've blindsided me 2 times in a row and just voted out all my other allies, but it's okay. I still want to work with you guys." And I think both sides were pretty, as shown by the vote, were pretty clearly lying in that conversation. But then Kristen knew that I can't really trust Colin and Hannah at this point. I need to kind of let's try. I don't have much of a relationship with Shaggy and Leah, but they haven't blindsided me twice in a row, so I'm going to take a shot because I really don't have much else to do here.
now really, are we worried that Kristen's really going to like challenge Beast it to the end? Like they were saying like, oh, she's won 2, but really the 2 or one was kind of thrown to her, and then she kind of won the other one kind of randomly. Are we, Dustyn, you're shaking your head no, like Kristen's not a challenge beast at all.
Not only was she not necessarily this challenge beast, and while she's incredibly smart, she was also seemingly very passive in the strategy and the votes. So Kristen is saying, I know it's me, I need to get this couple out. When anytime she got any pushback on it, she just kind of let it happen and went back to kind of the same old ways and put her trust in these people who had been lying to her out and out. The part that I don't get and I'll never get is Shaggy and Leah have been this duo the entire game. Why are you allowing another duo against another duo going into Final Four? Like your best case scenario is fire making. Is like literally that's what your eyes on. But if you get rid of it, Kristen has nowhere to go. Like the other 2 form a duo in a partnership where they don't trust each other this whole game. There was no logical reason for Kristen to be voted out at Final 5. I don't understand it. I had sent, before the episode came out, I had sent Trevor a message saying how like almost everybody in the game could get to the end. And he like laugh reacted my comment and was like, you'll see in 75 minutes.
Oh.
And then it started and I was like 20 minutes in and I was like, damn it. And it really did play out almost exactly how I predicted it to for the player who gets to the end. So that's really funny to me. I don't understand what that fear was. And I almost feel like it wasn't a game fear. That Hannah and Shaggy connection is what shapes the end game. And as much as we want to sit here and be like, play the game, that emotional connections to people, how you feel about somebody, those promises that get made, to some people, that is more important than a game, and it should be. But that's really what shapes this season, is those emotional connections. And I think it's a tribute to how amazing the cast is.
Exactly. And I think another thing that was brought up, I remember at the time, I don't remember how much it was emphasizing the episode, but people were concerned of Kristen. Not only, she's won 2 immunity challenges. Yeah, that is impressive. But she has 2 locked votes on the jury. I remember people like especially like Hannah and Shaggy, they were saying, if Kristen makes it to the end, Henry and Sophie are voting Kristen, and there's no doubt about it. And Nick worked with Kristen for forever, so that might be 3 locked votes. They're, when you think about Kristen, you don't necessarily think, oh, she might be a jury threat. But looking at that particular jury, there might have been a shot at her sneaking out a win there. Her and Leah tied for the dark horse in the Touch Your Subject challenge, and that might have been her way of riding off in the sunset.
Yeah, I think everyone had some fans on jury. Maybe not everyone per se, but maybe our two front runners for sure that got to the end. There were people that were going to go to bat for them. And like I said, I think it's all about jury management too, and the way that the jury presents your case at the end too. I know it's kind of skipping ahead per se, but like this is our like hot topic right now, the finale. It's really the people that are voting for you and that want to root for you that plead a case to the other jury members and say, "Hey, here's why you should vote for this person." And I think the winning side just did a better job.
I think the other part of it is the jury management is we know who's on the jury. That's another point for Kristen going to the end. She didn't have all these groups. She didn't have all these connections. She was very much here and then left out of it. No, Kristen had a huge part pre-jury. She was a pivotal player in a lot of those votes. Post that, she stuck loyal to these people and it blew up in her face.
Every single time she was like, "Yeah, I'll vote with you. Yeah, I'll vote for you." And then, oh, I was blindsided. Oh, I was blindsided again. But hey, let's do it one more time. Like, fool me once. That's what they say, right?
Yep. So to get into a little bit more on like what Hannah and Colin were thinking and leaving Kristen here, I know that Colin definitely was someone who wanted to take out Shaggy in this vote and just wanted, because he felt like, okay, Shaggy's just a much bigger challenge threat. I can definitely see him winning the last challenge. And that is why he did end up voting for Shaggy in that in the vote at the final five. Hannah's vote and her reasoning behind it, I think I ended up cutting this just due to time and based off of the rest of the stuff that happened in the episode. But she was starting to get a little bit nervous that if I leave Kristen in the game, that leaves Colin Ray, who I don't think is going to vote me out, but it also leaves Kristen, who's closer to Colin than she is to me, as well as Leah, who's closer to Colin than she is to me. So if I keep Shaggy here, I feel like there's no way Shaggy and Colin are going to vote together to vote me out. So I think she was getting paranoid at this point of just, I need to get to the end somehow. And yes, I might have a little bit less of a chance of making it to the end with who I want to if I leave Shaggy, but at least I'll be able to get there. Because I know going into it, I was very curious. I've always, ever since this happened, I was curious as to what was her real reasoning behind this vote. And it seems like that's, at least I understand. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that reasoning, but now I understand that she was starting to get a little bit skeptical about Colin Ray and starting to get a little bit paranoid that he may be looking to make the big move to cut her at the final four.
Very similar to what like Hannah said too, going into the show in general. She's like, there are so many times that I see people make decisions on screen that I don't agree with. And this is kind of one of those decisions that we have here as an audience and saying, hey, this probably isn't best for you.
Yeah, I think when looking back on this season, especially how the end game and what happens in the end and everything, I think this final five vote is so pivotal. The challenge was just to recap real quick. The challenge was second chances. It was a lot of previous previous portions of different challenges, like the dizzy bet race or like stacking dominoes or things like that. And Hannah had both immunity and an immunity idol, and it was the last time she could play it. So going into tribal, Hannah basically has all the power, and she has the votes because she can either go with Kristen or go with Leah and Shaggy. And like you said before the start of Dustyn, like all these reality games it's a lot of coulda, shoulda, wouldas. And I think this final five vote is the epitome of that.
Great final challenge, by the way, for the final five. It was really nice to see you incorporate a lot of elements from the other games. I know it's been done before, but I think you did it really well. And it really was somebody else winning every different leg. Like Kristen was super struggling at the bat, and then get to the next challenge. She schools like the domino stacking, I think it was, and then goes off before everybody else. Like it was really a shift to see like who's taking each leg of the race. So
I think even that, though, shows how much Kristen isn't this challenge piece. And until we get to hear the logic and it has to be the emotional part of it, there is just not a reason for her to be the vote.
Yeah,
So
I think it was more they felt she was more of a jury threat than a challenge threat. Like Trevor said, I think it felt like there's a lot of people on the jury who are very close friends with Kristen, and I think that pushed some of it. But more so, I think it was a lot of Hannah starting to get skeptical of Colin, and it was a couple different factors for each of the different people, I think. But yeah, I do think that Kristen, not as much of a challenge start as may have been perceived by everyone else.
Yeah, I still think like Shaggy had the bigger like the jury threat per se. Like we really liked Lily from the start because of the way she spoke and the way she kind of like commanded everybody to like rise up with her and work with her. And I think like that was the biggest one too. We have Jacob tuning in from YouTube here. Thank you, Jacob, and saying that Ray and Hannah were robbed. I don't know. Like they did a great job. They made it to the end and whatnot. And I don't know if Ray is probably the one receiving most of the votes in any scenario. Destiny, I know you threw out to Trevor a way that like Ray makes it to the end. Did you ever have like Ray winning this at the
No, I never. They're not at 5. There was a way for him to win at maybe 7, but not at 5. I feel like for him, he was loyal to no one but himself, which is fine, but this cast didn't appreciate that. They very much pledge allegiance and loyalty, even though they were doing the shady stuff, but they were saying the words like we're not. And I feel like anything he would have done was forever going to be covered of the fact that he had Hannah there. And Hannah was such a powerhouse. Hannah was so much. And I get why Jacob is upset. I also believe that Hannah should have won this game. But that's not to say that Shaggy's not a deserving winner. Because he started in a majority, went to a minority, and figured it out. That's it. He figured it out, and you can't be mad at that. So, in playing these games, there was no way for Colin to ever get over that, and he was too timid in his votes, in the things that he said. Like he just was never going to be able to sell himself because he was like, sorry, and would like walk away. Like you can't. You're like, yeah. It's like that TikTok video, that ha 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 fuck you video. Like you just take it. Like yeah, that's not gonna work for him. So.
Yeah, I was just gonna say. I think. I think in a lot of scenarios, I know we've said this past podcast, but I think this final 3. I think we have like. I think all three of them had a chance to win this game. I think all 3 played potentially winning games on different seasons or anything. It's just that it just came down to, like you said, Dustyn, it always comes down to the jury and what the general jury perception is, and if it's okay, a complete gameplay, okay, they're with this person. If it's okay, what is this person? How does one present themselves at Final Trouble Counts? Okay, I'll vote this way. So it really just depends. It's really you really have to get lucky with this jury.
Jacob says that Ray is still an icon. So maybe Ray was teased for coming back. Season 3 coming up. We don't know, and only Trevor and Colin know in this little group chat we have going on. So they teased season 3 at the end of this finale episode, and Trevor makes a comment saying that there's 14 people in the game. There's not enough people, so he's going to bring in more. We don't know if it's going to be 2 people, probably maybe 4 people from a past season or this last season. We don't know. So maybe Jacob, you'll get to see Ray compete one more time. But I think really what hurt them was the relationship, and that was really like something they tried to keep hidden as best they could. But it just hurt them at the end, I think.
Yeah, I know in particular, I think Sophie mentioned like, oh, well, you had your boyfriend the whole time, or you had your girlfriend the whole time, so it was easier for you. But I think maybe the counter to that could be like, well, I did, and we were a pair, and you guys knew, and we're still here. I think in the case of both Colin and Hannah, at the Final Tribal Council, I think both might have been a little too just a little too passive. I think Shaggy was pretty secure and confident in how he played the game and everything. I think had had they been more assertive or anything, it could have flipped some votes. Could have flipped Kristen. Could have flipped Leah. Could have flipped all those votes and everything. But yeah, we're jumping ahead a little bit, but yeah, that's what I thought about how their performances were overall.
Jacob is making a prediction. I don't know if I agree with this 100%, but he thinks Ray or Hannah will be back next season. If Hannah comes back, I'd say put her in as a coach for sure. Like she knows how to play the game. Like maybe it's Hannah and Ray. Maybe they each get started on a different tribe and they're the coaches for the season per se. That would be nice.
Yeah, we'll have to see who comes back for next season. Stay tuned for season 3. It'll be a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. But then we have Kristen getting voted out at 5. Brings us to the 4 immunity challenge. And we have a domino on a cone. You said this is the traditional kind of challenge. I did not follow season 1. Was this what you did previously?
Yeah, this was all Colin's idea. We needed an endurance challenge, and Colin thought of it.
Right, because we figured it's kind of there's no real good way to do something. We wanted to do something going back to like the early days of Survivor, where you had to put your hand on the idol and everything. But there really wasn't a good place or a good way to do that. So we wanted to do something similar that would be somewhat physically demanding, but not nearly as bad as something like the pole challenge. I feel like would be worse. But something that it's not just kind of like standing around and who can stand in this circle the longest, but something that there is some physical demand to a point where you could slip off of it, like happened to at least Hannah in this challenge. But it is a good way to test your endurance because it's something you can power through if you have enough willpower.
And I think really it was Hannah's to lose. Like she said it herself. She's like, I've been a ballerina for 10 years. Like I can do this forever. Like she was, I guess, smack talking, I guess the term is, right?
I think the part that we're forgetting in this challenge is the promises that are being kind of thrown around to the next level. And it takes over a huge part of this game because not only does it give Colin Ray distrust in Hannah, which I think previously he was kind of pushing one way, and how he was pushing kind of came off as jealousy. That's my perception. It doesn't mean that it was real, but that's how I took it. But Shaggy in front of the rest of the game says, I promise on, I think he said his grandma, which again, to me, and this is me, Destiny only, promises to me are like in these games, like you don't break them. My daughter and I have a thing, like we use the Kardashian phrase Bible, like we don't lie in the Bible and we don't break promises. And so in these games, when he did it, I was like, oh my God, please don't tell me he just did that to lie. Don't pull a Henry. And what ends up coming out of it is this great gameplay where he upholds it. And so then everyone else has to strategize around the fact that they're not going to vote for one another. And they try to point the fingers, and it does try to become this 2-2 split. But how are you going to do a 2-2 split when it's a boyfriend and a girlfriend?
Yeah, it seems like a lot of Shaggy's idea in this is he immediately, I believe, right after he said the promise, he was immediately like, oh, I probably shouldn't have said that because I really need to vote Hannah out here. But I've kind of already said it. I can't really undo it. So I now need to kind of play my game around that. And I think a lot of what he does after that is try to figure out how can I get Hannah to go home this vote without me writing her name down. And that pretty much becomes his goal at the Final Four. He says, okay, well, the best chance I have is there to be some sort of tiebreaker that she loses. So that it seems to be a lot of what he tries to get to work at the Final Four, to try to get Hannah out without being the one to write her name down so we can keep that promise.
I just didn't understand why they didn't try for a 2-1-1. And really, I think there was just too many hands in the basket. Leah and Shaggy pushing the same thing. That's what gives it away. When two people come to you and they're saying the same thing, clearly y'all talked. And we knew you've been a duo the whole time. But I think that Hannah votes Colin Ray under the assumption that Shaggy believes she's not going to vote Hannah, and Leah understands that her only option is to go for Shaggy with Colin Ray. And to throw that in and then be like to Hannah, everyone thinks you only got here for your boyfriend. Put your boy on the boyfriend and use it as a jury speech. Like, I tried to vote him out at Final Four, but they wouldn't vote with me. And use that as a tool. And I think at this point, Shaggy and Hannah have such a relationship where they're going to work together and they're this new duo. Like, obviously, Colin wants me out. He's going to put his vote on me. I promised. I'm not breaking that promise. I'm not voting you. I'm going to vote Leah, but you need to prove to this jury that this is something you are willing to do. And I think those words, if it's not coming from both of them, gets her into a point where she goes, okay, maybe, because now I know the vote is going to be 2-1-1. However, Hannah's also really freaking smart, and so she might see through it. Like, this is just like my dream scenario scape. However, I also want Shaggy to walk out the door because I don't want to see him in the final because I think he wins. So for me, it's really it's them getting Leah to finally vote Shaggy because I don't know why she wants him at the end either. That's the other part of this whole scenario is she's so focused on getting Hannah out that she doesn't focus on getting herself to the end. And I think that's where Leah's downfall is rather than putting first herself and getting to the end and just getting a chance to be like, well, at least I got third. She pushes to the narrative, hey, this is a problem. Hannah, when it could have been, yeah, you are going to be really tough to beat, but I'm going to give you a run for your money because I'm badass. But neither one of us is going to vote Shaggy. So while Shaggy promised not to vote you, you didn't promise not to vote him. Or don't vote him. Put your vote on me. Colin Ray and I will put our votes on Shaggy. And then again, it's a 2-1-1 scenario. So I think that was part of one, Shaggy's missed. He had a lot of women who were willing to work with him when he was giving very little back to them aside from loyalty. But I think that's just what he had, and it's probably very likely why he did as well in the final tribal council as he does, because he has a mist, and it's not that politician mist. It's a true, genuine human. You want to be around Shaggy because he's fun and lovable, and he seems like the guy after you had a bad day that you just want to get a hug from. I know I want a Shaggy hug, and he just seems like a genuine human being. Am I wrong? Is he a jerk?
No, he's not a jerk.
And it seemed like his passion for the game were so inspiring too. We had a few jury members say hey, Shaggy plays a honest game. He loves the game of Survivor. He's here to win and to do his best. And I think that's really a strong commitment too. These kids are all I say kids in general, but these kids are all going to college at the same time. They're having all these classes to attend, and to have somebody committed to this game as much as Shaggy is, or even probably Colin Ray and Hannah and Leah and everybody pulling in their time to do all these meetings with people. That's just dedication, and that's just to be commended in general.
Yeah, I'm kind of interested in your two guys' opinions. When you saw after the Final Four vote, what did you, since it was your first time viewing it, what did you have an idea of who you thought was going to win? Did you think it was going to be close between the three of them? Where was your head at going into Final Tribal?
So there's the heart and the mind. So I know what my heart wanted, and my heart wanted Hannah to smash those boys in the face and come out with a 7-0 victory. That is what my heart wanted, and truly I think she deserved it. But I also really, very early on this season, I said I predicted Shaggy to be the winner of this season. It took a long time for me to even be able to see a woman even come close to winning this season. And again, I stand by my comments. The women ran circles around the men as far as strategy goes. And it's not a bad thing. They were just very strong women, and that's intimidating. It's intimidating for a lot of people. Women are intimidated by it. Other men are intimidated by it. So it's a heart versus mind thing. Going into that final, the only person who I didn't think had a shot of winning is Colin Ray. And I'm sorry, Colin Ray, like, it's not that you didn't play a good game, but you were called out on it. You played the middle. You played the middle well. But in playing the middle, you weren't making these big dog decisions. There's a way to play it so that you teeter-totter and you're always in the best spot. Really, you were going with everyone within numbers. And then when you got with Hannah, it was no more playing the middle. You kind of followed what she needed. And while she doesn't say that, it's shown.
And he doesn't bring it up. Like, he was in such a good position during the entire game. Like, he's like, oh, no, that wasn't my gameplay. No, I made decisions. No, like, own your game. Your game was being safe. Like, this is how you maneuvered between, like, kind of 2 alliances and kind of 3 with your alliance with Hannah, too. Like, you had an alliance here. You had some talking points here. Like, you had an early connection even with Leah. Like, I think in the first episode, they were like, hey, we have to work together. And I don't know if that carried through all the way to the end and maybe just kind of lost on the editing floor if that was something. But I remember those two worked right off the bat at the first. So I don't think he explained his gameplay as he should have. He denied everything that he did to try to make himself sound bigger, sound badder, and it just didn't work.
Yeah, with that, the Leah and the Colin Ray connection, I've always found interesting. I know that it's been discussed a couple times about how Leah kind of latched on to Lily and Shaggy and kind of became their third there. This could be completely in my own mind, but I've always kind of envisioned that in Leah's mind as being, really it was a 4. It was Lily, Shaggy, herself, and Colin Ray was her 4th. And she saw it as, okay, I'm going to stick with them because I know I've got Colin Ray. Once the merge comes, I'm going to have Colin Ray with me and we'll be a strong 4 and we'll be able to attack Hannah and the rest of them. And then the merge came and they all found out, oh, Colin Ray's dating Hannah. I don't feel great about this alliance anymore, so I kind of have to go with Lily and Shaggy. I'm kind of out of options now.
That's the other part of this season that is going to give me the most questions. It's found out very early, I think right when they merge, that they are a couple. And they do a good job explaining why they kept it a secret. They really do. And everyone's like, oh, it's okay. It's okay. But then the only times that it's brought up is in a place of shade, right? Like somebody's trying to save themselves. So they throw it out there like, yeah, and you're letting a couple get to the end. And it seems bitter, right? There was a time to take them out of this game. At least one of them. Colin Ray was not protected 95% of the game, but nobody ever was saying his name. And that's the part that I think Hannah should have hammered home, or even Colin Ray should have hammered home. Like, there is absolutely, name another season where a couple gets to the end and you're not Boston Rob and Amber. Like, name another time. Because it doesn't happen. There's a reason why you take out duos. There's a reason why you take out couples. I don't care if I'm telling you I'm going to vote my husband out. I'm likely not going to vote my husband out because he makes more money than I do right now.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding.
And 2 live games that I know about that are typical, like, outdoor survival, like a few day events, people will go camping and they have these excursions and whatnot. There are 2 games that do come to mind. There was a Real Foot season where 2 boyfriends got to the end. And then there was a adventure game that we put on that a couple got to the end as well. So it is possible, but it's very hard to see.
Was it known that they were a couple?
I think the boyfriends played it off, and it wasn't until merge, very similar to this, that something got leaked or some word got slipped, whatever. So I think it was known at that point, but they were seen as so distinct people that they weren't seen together. They were just seen apart.
Yeah, I think that Hannah and Colin deserve a lot of credit for being able to convince everyone else that, hey, we'll vote each other out. I don't care. We'll do it later. And I mean, even going down to the final 4, Shaggy and Leah kind of believed, oh, they might vote for each other here. I know they're 1 vote away from just being in the finals together, but they still might vote for each other because they said they have been. But then some of the other players that felt they were aligned with Hannah and Colin, I think that their thought process was, well, we could vote one of them out, but currently that's 2 votes that are on our side. I don't think that we don't need to take out 2 votes that are on our side, because if we do that, we lose both of those votes. It ended up with them turning on them before they were able to do anything about it. But I do believe that Hannah and Colin did a very good job of always saying, yeah, we're dating, but we never even played together, but pre-merge we were never on the same tribe. So we've got completely separate games right now. We just are dating outside of the game.
And it was very similar to my experience too, because in one of the games that I played, one of the rare ones, the couple did get to the end, and I felt like, oh, okay, I have the couple on my side. I can't vote them out because that's 2 votes on my side. I got to keep them on my side. And then you get to the end, and you're like, oh, of course they're not going to work with me in the end, per se.
Duh.
Kirk voted me out before then, okay? You blame Kirk.
I blame Kirk for every problem I ever had. You should see the messages I sent him. I think that's a testament to Hannah and Colin Ray. And I'm actually going to say Hannah, because Hannah got more of a backlash from Colin Ray because the people Hannah were playing with were the smarter side. That's so mean. I don't know
More strategic side.
More strategic. That's probably the much better word, because I'm not to say that the Pinky Pack wasn't intelligent, because they were. They just were in power for so long. And when you are in power for so long, you get complacent. And I'll say it 100 times over. I would rather play from the bottom every day of my life, because you're thinking more and you're trying to come up with strategies. When you have the power, you're like, meh, why bother? Why ruffle anyone's feathers? Let's just go with the flow, until you're not. And then you're like, oh shit, I should have came up with something. And so the Pinky Pack just never had to kind of have this strategy. And then when they were on the bottom and they had this strategy, even though everyone's recanting of the story is different than what actually happened, I still think that strategy works. I really do. If Colin Bunn just keeps his mouth shut that it's fake, the shit works. Point blank period. It works. And so again, it just goes to a testament of the strategy wise. Shaggy told everybody and their mom, and that's how they got in the predicament that they got into. But good for him. It allowed Shaggy to get that trust with all of these people. He used it to his advantage. And really at the end of the day, all he did was piss off Colin Bunn, which again, I think is part of the reason why Hannah doesn't win, is because her biggest advocate in the jury is Colin Bunn, and he doesn't have any friends on the jury. He's like target A. Like if you agree with this, you're wrong. So I don't think that helps her in any of the decision making. At least unless I'm seeing something different.
Yeah, before we get too deep into the final tribal council itself, I do want to give Colin Ray a good bit of credit, especially for his pre-merge game. When he went onto that pre-merge, there wasn't a lot of people on his tribe, a lot of people that he had good relationships with after the swap, where he was there with Nick and Addie, and Abby was really his only connection. But he was able to get just about everyone on that tribe did trust him, and turned out to pretty much be the whole Red Scare alliance with Nick, Kristen, Henry, and Sophie. And that really formed the foundation that allowed Hannah to make the big moves on the other side, to keep her idle and feel safe that, okay, I just have to get to the merge because then I can jump over to the side with Colin Ray, and allowed a lot of the foundation for what ended up being most of the end game with Hannah and Colin playing such a large factor. I think a lot of it would not have been possible without Colin Ray's pre-merge game that I want to give him the credit for there.
Colin Bunn is probably one of the people that I would most want to see in another live reality game, per se. I think he had so many great ideas. He put them forward, and they just didn't follow through, per se. And I think he's one of those people that will learn and build upon the failures of what he did before, but great ideas, and present them in a different light on the next game that he plays. I could see him trying out something else and being excited for that, and the passion he has for this game, I think it will relay into the next game as well. So,
you said Colin Bunn or Colin Ray?
Colin Bunn.
Yeah, I thought so. I
Mhm.
think the one negative with Colin Bunn is he just has to tone down. And you kind of hear it in the jury thing when Shaggy's like, you said this was like the Pinky Pack title. And he's like, I said that? Like, how do you not remember what you said? This was this grand gestured speech. And it just puts, at least for a player like me, if I'm and I'm like, well, you said this and you went, I didn't say that. We're done. I will never work with you. I won't, I am not telling you anything. I'm doing nothing with you. And so if he can tone that part of it down and maybe say less, he will be, because his strategies are fantastic. It's the execution.
And really the idea of having like an open, like, hey, here's a immunity idol for all of us. That was such a great idea. Like we've never seen it successful, but I think it was really, he probably hadn't seen anything like this before either. It's been done a few times in games and whatnot, but the way that he presented it to the team as a whole and everything was really good. It was the fact that he told people, like you said, Destiny, about it afterwards, that it wasn't real. So.
And, he'll learn from that. And, I mean, at least he knew the person to blame for it. The strategy not working is Shaggy. And so we've talked about it a lot. It was almost really hard not to talk about it because all of these things really does shape this final tribal council. And it really does shape, one, a great job to the storyline. I'm very upset I didn't get to see my boyfriend, girlfriend vote each other out. Colin knew I was going to be sad about it because I thought it was foreshadowed so much for it. And then when it didn't happen, I was like, okay, it's foreshadowed for this jury speech. And then it wasn't. Like, we never got this closure on, really, it was, they politicked it. They were just said these words. And I don't know, when I was in the Marine Corps, they said that if you say things 3 times, people would finally believe it. And I think that they thought that it was 33 times because we heard it so much that almost people started to believe it. I think at one point Shaggy thought he was Hannah's number 1 over Colin Ray. Truly, and maybe he was, and Hannah just never was in a situation where she had to pick a side. But it really does shape this final tribal council. So when you watch the tribal council, there is some video footage that is missing. And kudos to you guys for coming up with the solution. And it does work. I'll also say, because the episode is so long, you kind of stopped looking at their faces so much. Like I was, so you didn't, there was times when I was like, why is he just staring at me with this cheat? And I was like, oh yeah, that's right. They don't have his, and there were other times when like I could audibly hear Hannah rolling her eyes and I would like go to look to see it. So I think the only part that I missed is like that portion of it. I think I'm relieved to not see what Colin Ray looked like because you could just feel he really did put his heart and soul in this game. Just because we don't, not even we, I'll say me, even though I don't see his game and respect, like the middle, really, like he did the Sandra G's Twine thing, anyone but me, and Hannah, as it kind of got further. Just because I don't respect it, I don't think that he didn't put his heart, soul, blood, sweat, and tears into this game. It's just different than how I would have done it. And so going into the tribal, Colin Ray is 8 alive. And I think at one point, Sophie chews him up, spits him out, and then eats him again. Just lays into him. And he's too kind-hearted. He doesn't have, remember, he's our physics guy or our science guy. Biochem. He just seems very non-confrontational. He was like, I'm sorry, that's how you see my game. Like, he just kind of took it. And really good for him because I think it showed his character. And I don't think he could have said anything at that point against Hannah and Shaggy that would have changed anybody's mind. So good for him just to like take it on the chin and be like, all right, troops, we're good. But then you get into Hannah and Shaggy, and this is where the battle comes in. Dustyn, did you think Shaggy was going to get the votes that he got?
I said it before. I felt like he had a huge jury presence. However, when Leah got voted out, she said in her confessional, I'm 100% voting for Hannah. At that time, I switched. I was like, all right, Hannah's got it. I'm so sorry for the editors for making this an easy thing. Like, after Leah said that, I was like, Hannah has it in the bag. Because I thought Leah was going to be very pro Shaggy and everything for their like time they spent together. But after that confessional, I was like, all right, Shaggy's not going to win anybody over if Shaggy can't win Leah over. So that was really the tipping point for me in that episode, that Leah was going to vote for Hannah, and that's what it was going to be.
I think this goes back to something I said earlier in the episode, and I talked to Leah, then I got to see her side of it. But I found her to be very following and very, like, she would just go with it. She would hear an idea. She would go, no, that's wrong. Why are we listening to that? But she would go with the idea anyways, right? So that is what I'm going to give her a one-time pass of wrongness, because I think in her heart she knows that the player who probably, again, not that Shaggy is not a deserving winner, I just think Hannah just overall. But hearing these jury questions and hearing it was a Shaggy fan club. Lily's over there. Shoot, who else? Henry's over there, and they're like broing out when he was awake, but Henry had to be awake for it. But when he was awake, they were broing out. And there was another one. Sophie was kind of an advocate and very vocal about being, and rightfully so, the difference between Sophie for Shaggy and Sophie for Hannah is Hannah and Sophie were working together very closely and got blindsided when she didn't need to be, because they were, really, it was Shaggy who was scared to cut Henry with this idol in his pocket, which they end up doing the next round. Just kind of some back and forth. So Sophie, rightfully so, wins this bitter jury title and kind of comes into this jury with this bitter understanding. And she was hurt by Hannah. They had been working together for a long time in the game, where her and Shaggy had been lying to each other the whole time. Obviously, you're going to be like, well, I don't care that you lied to me again. I'm used to it. You always lie to me. So I didn't expect Hannah to get the Sophie vote. But when Sophie was so vocal and Lily was like Shaggy's cheerleader, like she didn't even have a question for Hannah. She just was like, congrats on getting here. What shoe designer are you wearing? Like, she doesn't have anything for Hannah to even be like, okay. So there's no point. And I think with all of those things, Leah being so non-confrontational, even when she was fighting for things, she was still so non-confrontational about it. I think she just took a route where she went with her friends, because I've done it. I've been in games where I've voted differently from my friends, and my friends are like, what are you doing? Blah, blah, blah. And you feel like you have to justify your decision, right? Because you have to. And I'm like, wait a second. Why do I have to? I don't owe you anything. Like, I voted for who I think played the best game. It's my opinion. Leah is not the person who I think is going to stand on this high horse and be like, no, I voted for who I think played the best game. Especially when at the end of the day, she is friends with Shaggy. And I don't think she has the ability to want to hurt anyone ever. And so I think she just thought that Hannah will understand. And we'd seen it kind of over and over in these games where decisions were being made because they didn't want to hurt people's feelings, right? We saw it in touchy subjects when people were crossing out X's. We saw it in, there was another one where you had to pick players, and people were picking players off of who they thought wouldn't be angry, or who they were like, well, it's not going to matter. People were giving idol clues on a safety net. Like, I gave my idol clue to John because he's crazy and I didn't want him to yell at me. And there were all of these things that this cast, while very strategic, was also very emotional. In a level that I don't think that we predicted in the beginning of the season. They were all saying we're going to be cutthroat, we're going to play the game, we're going to do what we have to do to win and get to the end. And that's not what ends up happening. They're very... So I think that part for Leah. And once that vote's gone, what chance does Hannah have? Is there... Do you see a way, Colin? You got to see all the footage. Do you see a way?
No, I think that walking into this final tribal council, it was very much an uphill battle for Hannah. I think that there were a lot of people. I think that I don't think there was any way she was ever going to get the Henry vote. I don't think there was any way she was ever going to get the Sophie vote. There was obviously no way Lily was not going to vote for Shaggy. So walking in, those are 3 absolute no chances. So she pretty much has to sweep everyone else of getting the Leah vote as well as the Kristen vote, which I think ended up being 2 of the more ones that I see as kind of in the middle that could have gone either way on it.
No, I'm kind of surprised about the Kristen vote. I think Henry had a great question for Hannah to secure that Kristen vote. Like, Henry asked Hannah, who would you have wanted to win if it hadn't been here? It hadn't be you. We see all the jury on top. Little picture I just made up here. Like, I just made this up while you folks were talking.
I was wondering what you were doing.
I know, you saw me distracted. I was like, oh, I'm doing this. So,
like, I know I'm faking a challenge right now. What are you doing?
I just made this. So, so we have the jury up there. So we're talking about, like, who could maybe Hannah have swayed, per se. And I think Henry gave Hannah a good question about who would win if you weren't up there. And I was surprised that Kristen didn't give it to Hannah. Like, Hannah voted Kristen out because she was such a powerhouse, and thinking maybe Kristen would have respected that as a gameplay move. But Kristen didn't end up voting for Hannah. That was one of my surprises when the votes were read. I thought Kristen may have respected that and voted for Hannah at the end.
So I edited the final tribal council. So just to talk about that real quick. First, going back to the how I edited with the pictures, I want to shout out to, where I got the inspiration from was Liz Riley in season 2 of Melbourne Survivor. She did something similar where she had like pictures and she zoomed in who was talking during tribal councils. So I really liked that. Once I found out we didn't have that footage, I was like, okay, this is what we're gonna do, because I thought it looked pretty good despite not having footage. So, so that I just want to say that real quick. Secondly, Leah was last to vote. She sat down and she talked for, I'm not joking, she talked for, I believe, 3.5 minutes straight. She sat down and said, I'm not gonna lie to you, I have no clue what I'm doing. And she debated with herself for 3.5 minutes. She said, like, I mean, I wish I came into this knowing I'm voting Hannah, but I wish Hannah really, like Destiny said, I wish Hannah really hammered it home more about her game and everything. And I feel like Shaggy kind of did that more so. But then she said, well, to counter that, when I think winner of this season, and who deserves it the most, I think it's Hannah. But like, I'm just leaning more so towards Shaggy. She really, really had a battle with herself on who to vote for. And she ended up going with Shaggy just because she felt like she understood his game best, and she was also on the bottom with him, and felt that he's also deserving, even if Hannah and Shaggy both playing very good games. She gave the notes to Shaggy. And then just to speak on Kristen a little bit, like I've said in the past, Kristen has never seen Survivor, so she's one of those that isn't really into this game like that. I knew she came in to Final Tribal Council with a very open mind, and when I would think we had like a discussion afterwards. She'd mentioned she said, I voted for the person that I thought played the best game in her eyes. And to me, how I understood that is when Shaggy, I don't remember if it was it was a question or a statement or anything, but when Shaggy said the title of the episode of "I survived," in the meaning of Survivor, I am the truest survivor because I survived so many times. I feel like, and I'm speaking as if I'm Kristen, but I think that might have really hit home for her, that this game's called Survivor. And, Hannah played a very great strategic game and everything. But Shaggy's the one that survived the most. He had the most adversity out of the 3 of them. So maybe that could have been a good vote for Kristen. I know Desi's not really happy with what I'm saying. In terms of especially the post-merge game, Shaggy had a lot of times where he was the one up for vote. I know Hannah had the Gabe boots. and the Maggie boot pre-merge, but I think the recency bias comes into play when it comes to this kind of votes.
And also, Kristen wasn't there for that. So, like, I know going back to that Final Five challenge, where part of it was you had to write down the names. Kristen quickly got through most of them, but still couldn't. And I don't know if she ever would have come up with the name Gabe. So when Hannah was at her lowest and really needing to scrape and survive, Kristen really had no idea what was happening over there. So I think that is kind of what hurt Hannah, is that she was on top for so long after that Chris, you would think like, oh, she's been on top the entire time. She was never on the bottom.
And that goes into Hannah's speech. And really, and Hannah does, as much as it pains me to say, with how well Shaggy handled that final tribal, I was almost leaning for voting him, and I've seen everything, and I've been, even though I picked him early, I was a very biased Hannah. I own it. I was a very pro Hannah. I got the fangirl. I got the t-shirt made. Like, I've been screaming Hannah. And so, I think it'll come with, if she ever plays again, just experience of knowing. Now, people don't genuinely care about that pre-merge portion, but she does need to showcase the struggles that she went to. She needed, and I waited for it. I was like, where is she talking about that these people were throwing challenges to get her out? People were willingly going to tribal council to write her name down, and she didn't go anywhere. She figured it out, and she didn't hurt anyone by doing it. She didn't piss anyone off. Like, even her friend was like, that's my friend. Like, yes, you did that. Good job. And Gabe was rooting for her even as he walked out the door. And that's almost impossible to do. You piss people off when you write their name down, or you do something where you're like, hey, we're in this together. You piss them off. I know, because I've done it, and they get mad. And I'm like, sorry. But she doesn't give that part of it. Really, what she keeps harping on is this relationship kind of thing. And she allows the jury to keep bringing it back to this. And that is all she gets to kind of showcase, is her and Colin Ray getting down. And had she have redid a different speech, and maybe it was because they had too much time over Thanksgiving break and she got in her head, Shaggy definitely, he gets 10 out of 10s on it. Like, I'm going to call him next time I need to write a speech, because it was that good. So, good for him. I think the other thing that I'm sad about is I didn't get to hear Henry's kind of pitch at the end. I'm ready for the politician to give his. I just want to hear his thought process, because I don't understand it, and so just being able to hear it, I was kind of, even though I cheered. This is awful. Henry, I like you. I cheered when you left with an idol in your pocket in our podcast chat. I was so excited. But then going back, I was like, they shouldn't have done that. Like, they shouldn't have done that. They should have let him keep digging that hole. And Hannah specifically should have kept him there, because he was a target in front of her. That was her meat shield. And it would have been more on him than her.
Now, speaking of Henry, we are working with the jury members and with Trevor and Colin to try to bring them all back, maybe like a group podcast, so we can hear from people like Kristen and Hannah and Henry to share their experiences on jury, and just to give us a little bit more insight. Like, we don't have to like tippy-toe around the details that we don't know yet, because we know. So we are working with that. We will keep you updated with our next podcast too. And of course, we're hoping to arrange a time with Shaggy, the winner here, for Survivor CNU in Deep Water. So just for the people watching at home, there will be more coverage here. But Trevor, really, ball's in your court at this point, right?
Yeah, I'll get the people down. We'll get a time down. We'll get some extended interviews about this great season.
Jacob has predictions, as he said before. He thinks Ray or Hannah will be back. And Jacob also says that they have no shot to win. Now, Destiny, thinking back to her cast of season 2, I have the little picture right here to refresh our memory. So here's our cast. If somebody were to come back season 3, now, I have not watched season 1, so I'm sorry, Trevor. Sorry, Colin. I'm not on this boat yet, because, of course, we're doing the water theme here. Destiny, who would you want to come back? Maybe season 3.
Oh, okay. So I want to see
Mondo.
Sam. I want to see freaking cut you with this blue marker. I want to see Sam have the ability and the chance to play the game. So I'm putting Sam in the hat out of pure liking her. We saw her for literally 42 seconds, and I want to see her play this game. The other person who I want to see come back is Addie. I think that he was so kind-hearted. He went out really early. And I just want to see him be able to he's forever going to be this physical threat, but I just want him to find a way to do it. Nick knows that I am a fan of his, so I really would like to see that. I don't want to see Hannah play the game again, not because I don't like her and strategize, like her strategy. I think that she is just above everyone else. I want to see her do something else and challenge herself to a level that she didn't have that here.
Absolutely. I can't wait to see Hannah and her live reality game experience grow from here on out. She's going to play another game. I'm sure she's going to go in with a full 20 people that don't know each other, that don't go to college together, different ages, different backgrounds, and she's going to excel. She's had this experience, she got it, she has it under her wings. She's going to grow from it and go from there. So I don't think Hannah's going to be back. As you said, I'm a big Nick fan as well. I could see him coming back. Also, I'm looking forward to maybe an Abby come back too. Abby had some really nice strategy. She wanted to partner with Henry. She's like, no one's going to expect this. And that's the kind of relationships that I like to see. Oh, wow, those two are working together, super secret, duos. So I think Abby had a lot of good gameplay going in as well. And of course, Lily. Lily is amazing. She's such a personality to see. So I think really we could just make a CNU season about Lily and how Lily votes herself out. It would be super entertaining. Trevor, I'm just throwing that out there, okay?
I'll see what I can do.
I mean, really, I just want Lily to come on and be like a podcaster, because not that y'all needed to be here because you didn't. Her takes are very good. She has very good insight. I think that she must be like a water sign of some sort, because she was very emotionally. She reminds me of my daughter, and not that we're even in close in age, but just the emotion side of it. My daughter's a Cancer, and she will never she remembers that time she had a sliver and I didn't get it out instantly 2 years later. She does not let shit go. And so Lily reminds me a lot, where she's very much, she's a strong house, she's very strong-willed, she's very determined. But if that emotional thing gets to it, it clouds all of her logical reasoning. And we're voting him out because he hurt my feelings. And not that that's what Lily did, but there's, those times when they're like, Henry's not calling the shots. She's like, Henry's totally calling the shots, but it's not against me. So Shaggy, let him do it. And that's kind of, and then you see it later when Henry votes her out. Lily doesn't let that go forever. Even in jury, she's throwing jabs at Henry. Maybe if you wouldn't have voted me out, you could be at the end too. And it just reminds me of she a Cancer, the sign, not the thing. So I would love to see her. I just think that she's too she's better than that. I need her here talking with me. There are a few people, and I can't even remember their names from season 1, that I think that would make really fun interactions. I'm going to go back and look at the thing, and then I'm going to post them in our chat so you can be like, yes or no.
Ooh.
Season 1 is very interesting. It's very different, but watch it. It's a good stream when you have just in the background and you're cleaning or whatever. It's a fun watch. It's fun. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't care to ever see Henry back, though. So can we not bring him back?
What? No, absolutely. Bring Henry back. I'm a huge Henry fan. Please, let's get Henry back.
Nah, I still, maybe after I talk to him and I understand his logic better,
Except for his sleeping at like Final Tribal Council, that was not really cool.
No,
Anything.
think
Maybe
of all
we had
the
a really
time.
long like debate or something.
Think of all the times that I gave Sophie a hard time for her face looking unimpressed. Like Henry, that was so, like it's disrespectful to the players. It's disrespectful to the production team. You guys put in how many hours of work and effort? That whole tribal council, you should have just had his face there, and that's what we got to see at the end of it. Because I think that one man eating Chex Mix at tribal council is rude and disrespectful. Like Sophie rolling her eyes every time Trevor said anything was, I get it's a part of her personality. I do it too, but there's all these things. But that was an insult. And then even his question that he asked. This is going into a different level, but I always say that there's 3 types of survivor questions. There's the why me, why'd you vote me, why'd you do this to me, when you said this, why me, right? There's the strategy because you don't understand it, because the players are way above you and you can't comprehend why something happened. And then there's the bullshit. There's the pick a number 1 through 10 and whoever gets closest gets my vote, right?
Yeah, I really like that one from Henry. For Hannah, who would win in this one word? Maybe not a one word thing, but that's the part that I was like, oh, good. She has a bonus point for Kristen, because I think Kristen would have been like, oh, hey. But anyway.
She didn't even get to she did because he got let her explain her question, and her saying Kristen pisses off everyone else. So no, he set her up for failure because he didn't allow her to say 5 more words.
Yeah, but still, like, Sophie and Kristen were like partners for the whole thing, so maybe Sophie would have been like, oh, wow, okay, so thanks for seeing my partner as a team player. Maybe
did we watch the same Sophie? Sophie is like me. You think that I would be okay with you giving my partner the win? Hell no. Hell no. I'm like, you suck. Your gameplay's so awful. Give me the credit, even if it's not mine. I need lots of attention, love, and affection. You stroke my... And that's the part of the jury management that, again, Shaggy does the best. Because really, a jury is 1, owning your game, but 2, it's stroking egos, right? And so he knew the ones that he couldn't stroke. All right, Colin Bunn, you have your vision of it. I tried. You play your whatever. But he really did hone into everyone else, and he gave them all their love. And that's what gets him the win. Where Hannah was on the defense, Shaggy was so much in his lovable character of his offense. And really, he gets to go. You guys named a tribe after me. Why don't you want me to win?
very sure.
So, Trevor, great season. Colin, great editing. I've told you 15,000 times the character builds that these individuals had, and not that they're characters because they are people, but their storylines that they had. You guys know, because I would ask for the episodes early. I would ask for sneak peeks. I would ask for spoilers. It's not just because I'm impatient. There has to be a reason to get me to want to watch. And you guys did a fantastic job. I look forward to never seeing those cheap dominoes again. Can we get better dominoes?
I have bad news for you.
Season 6. We'll look for it.
I don't think so.
No, okay.
Yeah,
Vintage by then. Vintage.
We'll put a note into Alex to get new dominoes for you, Destiny.
They're actually probably the dominoes taken out of a board game behind you. Like, you can't play one of those board games because they're pieces from... I really look forward to seeing how this evolves. And Dustyn doesn't know because he hasn't watched it. You can see such a difference in the confidence level in both the hosting and the gameplay. And I think once you're there, you experience new things and you're like, oh shoot, we didn't even come up with this. Like, because people do dumb stuff, right? Like, and you're like, how would I even know to come up with a scenario where a ball gets stuck in a thing? Because it happens. And you, but just your confidence level in your hosting and the ideas that you come up with and whatever these crazy twists, I can't wait to see what you do. So great season. Thank you so much for allowing us to be a part of it. And we're not done because we're going to get to talk to the Henry. We're going to get to talk to hopefully Leah and Hannah. and Shaggy the winner, and get to see kind of his whole thought process and get to relive all of that with them as well.
Yeah, and it's not the fact that we don't want to talk to anybody else on this season. So I think we can do like a little reunion thing too, or just see what we can do. So anybody watching at home that is watching the recaps that was a part of season 2, please contact Trevor. Trevor, you're in charge of this. So and we'll see what we can do. And of course, we want to do a one-on-one with Shaggy and just try to figure out like how you got here and how you survived, as you said. So. In the live reality games thing. So make sure to tune in to Survivor New York. Survivor New York is going on right now. Make sure to follow us on facebook.com/live reality games. Also at youtube.com/live reality games, because of course, why not follow on YouTube and not follow on Facebook? You know, might as well get them both. Like, it's a better package, right? Also, the Caucus Challenge is going on. We have actually live right now covering Victory House, The Mole, and a lot of great stuff coming out. So we really want to thank the community for being a part of this 2021 season. We're seeing a ton of live games. We're covering everything from Survival Challenge. We covered Real Foot earlier at Survivor BC. Australian stuff's coming out pretty soon. It's just their really hot season. So we'll see what they have to offer here in the coming months for sure. Trevor just did a nice little shout out to Melbourne Survivor, one of my initial ones that I started watching with Liz, and that was fantastic. And of course, just make sure to tune into Live Reality Games for all your live reality game coverage. Trevor, Colin, thank you for the work that you've done on the show. Dustyn is like, oh, Dustyn, you don't know, but I do. I've watched a number of these. Like, this is some great stuff. You guys do some great work. Your cast does a great job. And just all your commitment following through. Like, Trevor, you've done a ton of work following up with the contestants for us to meet with. And it's been amazing. It just ups this to talk to them so much better. So thank you. Thank you. And Destiny, once again, thank you for joining us at Live Reality Games. And thank you for people watching at home, listening onto the podcast and everything like that. So until then, folks, we'll see you for the next recap. All right.
Bye.